This is Jay Sekulow in Washington, D.C. The issue, the funding of Planned Parenthood and a new Congress. This is not getting discussed on the mainstream media. Not only are they wrong legally, but the fact that they would do this is outrageous. This is an overreaction and really nonsense. How would you react if this was your son or your daughter? It's the offense of knowing the truth. It's the offense of having an alternate worldview. Saying God bless you, someone, is not a violation of the law. Welcome to the broadcast, everyone, coming to you from Washington, D.C. By the way, in the next segment of the broadcast, we're going to be joined by our good friend, Congressman Chris Smith, because the issue is Planned Parenthood and funding. You've seen those videos that are running across the internet and being covered by television broadcasts now throughout the United States. So these undercover operations where Planned Parenthood, people are going and saying, we want you to perform an abortion on a minor. We want you to perform abortions on women engaged in sex trafficking that are being set up by these men who are allegedly sex traffickers. And Planned Parenthood covering up these procedures through these sting operations as if it was perfectly fine. Then they find out, of course, their sting operations and Planned Parenthood's reaction. We're going to talk about that with Congressman Chris Smith. But the idea is right now, with all of the scrutiny on Planned Parenthood, Jordan, $350 million of taxpayer money going to Planned Parenthood, and we've got a way to stop it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can stop it now because of the support of people like Congressman Smith who have been in Congress. It's 1980 when they won election, 1981 taking that oath, been fighting for life. But look at this chart, just this chart alone. Here's how many abortions Planned Parenthood performed in 2008. You'll see 324,008 abortions, what they reported. How many adoptions? You see that thin red line? That's how many adoptions, 2000. How much prenatal care? The little green line. You want to ask yourself if Planned Parenthood's more about abortion or more about planning parenthood or women's health? Just look at this chart right here. If you don't like it that way, look at it this way. That's abortions in blue. Adoptions and prenatal care, they're the little colors down here, the green and the red, you can barely even see. They don't even register compared to how many abortions they do.
Yeah, and this is, I'll tell you something else. This is, I think, a very, very significant thing here, and I think we've got to look at the reality that as we fight these issues significantly, we got to stay at the forefront on this. And I'm optimistic that we are, but the reality is they're getting a lot of money, and Planned Parenthood is getting our money. Let's go to the phones, take a couple phone calls, folks, as we fight back on this.
Gail calling from Florida on line 3. Gail, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Gail.
Planned Parenthood, their attitude toward life and sex, they create the problem, and then they're very self-serving, that then they want money to solve the problem that they help create.
Well, there's no doubt about that, but it's taken a step worse, and that is these undercover films, and we're going to show it in the next segments of the broadcast, are showing exactly what Planned Parenthood's up to. Remember, we've got a huge case against Planned Parenthood as well. I mean, a very significant case against Planned Parenthood.
Absolutely. Let's get another phone call. Cassandra calling from Nevada on line 2. Cassandra, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Cassandra.
I wanted the listeners to know from experience, I have had an abortion over 20 years ago. And family planning, they try to make you think it is a quick fix, but there's nothing quick about it. I'm still going through emotional stuff regarding the decision that I made. I was young and dumb.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you calling. I appreciate your honesty. Jordan, we've heard a lot of calls like this over the years. Planned Parenthood is in the business of abortion. We've got the opportunity through our litigation and through legislation that we're going to talk about with Congressman Smith to see an end to this once and for all.
That's absolutely right. And we need to hear from more people like Cassandra, more people speaking out who say, yeah, that's what Planned Parenthood does. And you're not surprised by what they do at these abortion clinics when these people come in posing as pimps or prostitutes saying that they've got children, kids. They're basically sex trafficking, and Planned Parenthood working with them on covering it up. That's who we've got to hear from, is more Americans who, one, have had that experience with them, and two, are just absolutely outraged. Why are we paying for this organization to have these offices, to have this staff, which obviously can't even handle a situation where you've got kids involved?
Yeah, we've got Congressman that's going to be talking about H.R. 3. That is a House Resolution 3. The third bill that was introduced in Congress, by the way, which is significant. It's called a bill to prohibit taxpayer-funded abortions and to provide for conscience protection and for other purposes. It is the most comprehensive piece of legislation that has been introduced in the United States Congress in 20 years to deal with public funding of abortion. We can defund Planned Parenthood, and Jordan, interestingly, it is bill number 3 in the new Congress.
Yeah, bill number 3 here. It is House Resolution 3 to prohibit taxpayer-funded abortions and to provide for conscience protections and for other purposes. It is the most comprehensive abortion, pro-life legislation that's existed before in the history of Congress. We're going to be talking about it with Congressman Chris Smith.
When we come back from the break, we're going to have Congressman Chris Smith with us from New Jersey. He's the author of H.R. 3. That's the bill to defund groups like Planned Parenthood. So we've got a lot more ahead. We'll be right back. Well, joining us now is someone that really needs no introduction. It's our good friend, Congressman from New Jersey, Chris Smith. Congressman Smith, thanks as always for being with us.
Well, thank you, Jay. Thank you for the great work you do and the center. It is worldwide, and it's very, very effective.
Well, we've enjoyed working with you for so many years, but I want to talk about, we've got a new Congress, and we've got a new situation, and you're leading the charge with a bill I think is just phenomenal. It says, a bill to prohibit taxpayer-funded abortions and to provide for conscience protection and for other purposes. It is a comprehensive piece of legislation. Tell us a little bit about about the bill, and I want to talk about where Congress is right now, because I went to some meetings on the Hill just the other day, and I'm very encouraged when you talk to leadership, when you talk to people like you who are running committees. This is an encouraging time, but let's first talk about the bill itself.
Sure. The bill is H.R. 3. It is a comprehensive bill that will get the government out of the abortion business. Right now, we are still facilitating abortion. D.C. approves. We're paying for abortions right here in the District of Columbia. We have control over that. We can stop it. We're still allowing people to deduct abortion as a medical expense. That would end if you have a health savings account. Right now, one of the eligible aspects is abortion on demand. That ought not to be. Abortion is not health care. It is the killing of a baby and the wounding of his or her mother. And we should make it very clear there's a bright line, and we want no complicity whatsoever in this child abuse, which also abuses the mother as well.
You know, some will say, well, we've got the Hyde Amendment. Isn't that enough? We hear that argument a lot, and we've talked about that on the broadcast, but let's talk about that. I mean, the Hyde Amendment, which has been helpful, no doubt about it, but it's not enough, and it's always subject to annual review.
Without a doubt.
It's not comprehensive.
Virtually all except the DOD, no funding in our military installations. All of the riders, as we call them, amendments added to the appropriations bills every year, like the Hyde Amendment, like the Smith Amendment. I offered that in 1983 to prohibit federal employees' health benefits program, which ensures 8 million federal employees and their families to take abortion out of it, so it's not covered by Blue Cross and Blue Shield and all the others.
Is it fair to say, Congressman, that this is the most comprehensive piece of legislation we've seen in the last 10 years?
Oh, it is. It's very comprehensive. It also has, as you pointed out in the beginning, a very strong conscience clause. We have 3 major laws on conscience. Try getting a remedy in court. Nobody does that better than you do, and we will now provide remedies.
And for those that aren't familiar with that issue, it's been one we've litigated in court, and that is medical professionals, maybe doctors, nurses, pharmacists. We've represented all of them. Med students who are interns or fellows or residents that don't want to participate in the abortion procedure. Some of these medical schools were requiring it. Other hospitals were saying, you must do it. We had a situation that went to court where a nurse was mandated to assist in an abortion procedure. There were 10 other women there, 10 other nurses that could have done that procedure. But in this particular situation, they compelled her to do it. She did not. They fired her. We got not only a damage verdict, but punitive damage as well. So, but on the conscience clause issue, the administration early on said they were going to undo that. They were going to change the Bush administration's protection of conscience. We haven't heard much about that, but this will solve that problem.
It will. What the administration did, and this was so disingenuous, they pulled back on the implementing regulations that are really needed, for an individual entity, whether it be a hospital, healthcare facility, a doctor, a nurse, LPN. They need a way to get into court. They need a way to act on their rights. And you have tried, and I greatly applaud you because you've had so much success with it. But there was a woman in Mount Sinai Hospital who was compelled, forced, to be part of a D&E abortion, a later term abortion,
right,
where the baby is literally dismembered at the 21st, 22nd week of gestation. A gruesome child abuse procedure, if ever there was one. She had trauma from it, and then they told her, you have to do it again. If we tell you, you have to do it again. And she said, I want no part of it. She went to court. The court said you have no standing and wouldn't allow the court case to
and
go forward.
that's the problem, because even if courts are sympathetic, which some are and some aren't, there's the standing issue, and some courts just rule against you. So it becomes a very, very big deal. Jordan, I know you had questions for the
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I know a lot of our pro-life listeners, and they've been activists, they've been involved in the grassroots, we're excited about is the fact that this is H.R. 3. This was the third piece of legislation. Well, actually, it was the second. I mean, there was the election of the leadership. There was the repeal of Obamacare, which in many ways a pro-life vote. And then this. So how has that changed, having this kind of majority now in the House of Representatives?
Well, the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, and Eric Cantor, our majority leader, the entire leadership, Kevin, they're just right on down the line, are not just pro-life when you're at a meeting with conservatives or pro-lifers. These are core convictions, and what a difference that makes. I know the opposite. I've been in Congress 31 years. I've been in the pro-life movement for 38 years. We've had nominal pro-lifers who would say it, even in leadership positions, but when the going got tough, it was, we don't want that amendment. We don't want you to push forward with this or that. And where the rubber really meets the road is just look at the CR that's coming up next week. We have
those that don't know what a CR is.
It's a continuing resolution to finish out the unfinished Obama and Democrat-controlled Congress work for funding the budget, the appropriations cycle. So several appropriations bills will be packaged into one final product. We have good, solid, new pro-life language going in there, including precluding funding for abortion in the District of Columbia, which Obama, who he came to the House of Representatives to a joint session, said he doesn't want public funding for abortion. Not only is Obamacare riddled with it in
All
at least
over it.
6 areas, including the community health centers at the time of his choosing, or a sympathetic judge, they can compel these community health centers, and they are huge throughout the country.
Oh, absolutely.
I have several in my own district to become abortion clinics.
Right.
And that's all left open. It's not covered by the Hyde Amendment because Obamacare appropriated and authorized at the same time. Sounds technical, it's really not.
But it's in there, and we
made
that argument in that case.
But even with D.C., while he was saying he doesn't want public funding, he's forcing public funding right within proximity to where we're sitting right now doing this radio show.
Let me follow up on that, because there's also discussions and bills being introduced in Congress right now dealing with Planned Parenthood type funding. These family planning organizations, they're doing abortions, they get no funding. Now you got a brand new Congress. If you're looking at it mathematically, you would say this legislation should at least pass the House of Representatives. What's your sense of that?
Very good sense. Arguably, this is the most pro-life House. We still have problems in the Senate. We have a working, we believe, majority, but it's very, very close, and they have filibuster rules and the like, so it's very difficult. But Mike Pence from Indiana has an excellent bill, which he has championed year in and year out, and actually got well over 190 votes for in the Democrat-controlled Congress, to prohibit funding to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, which I have called on the floor of the House of Representatives on 2 occasions, and they've got all apoplectic about it. Child Abuse Incorporated.
Right.
They're every year 324,000 abortions, the last year for which we have statistics. That's 324,000 dead babies and wounded mothers who have walked into their clinics. They are killing centers. And when you look at that doctor in Philadelphia who did gruesome surgeries and snipped the spinal cords of little babies after they were born, probably from misoprostol, alive, just like they are in utero prior to being killed, and killed at least one mother. I was asked on Fox, are you shocked by that? And I said, no, that's exactly what happens in every abortion clinic. Maybe they package it a little bit better. It was on in all the Planned Parenthood
Because they worship at the altar. I mean,
day.
I say it's their religion. They worship at the altar of abortion. I mean, this is their reason for existing.
And it is child bigotry.
Yeah, it is.
It really is prejudice against the child in the womb. And we have to start saying that. There are some people who don't like people based on color or religion. You know, how the Jews were so awfully mistreated, including the Holocaust by the Nazis. Well, there are people who hate unborn children. They look at them, in radical feminists speak, as parasites. And I think we have to get over this idea that somehow there's a benign, view here. This is lethal. This is the dismemberment or chemical poisoning of a child, and it always hurts the woman in some way, usually psychologically.
All right, we're going to have more with Congressman Smith when we come back right after this. Welcome back to the broadcast. We've got more with Congressman Smith. Let's turn our attention. We're talking about domestic issues. Let's talk about abortion on the international scale. And you know this, we've known each other a long time. We take institutionally a completely pro-life position. One of the things we've been concerned about is what we saw developing in Africa, which traditionally has been very conservative on the life issue and very supportive of life. But you've got a new administration in Washington, or not so new now, 2 years old. They're pushing their agenda in Africa aggressively. We saw this in Kenya, where we were in the middle of the battle. We're seeing that in other portions. Let's talk about the life issue and the abortion issue as it goes outside of the United States as well. I mean, Planned Parenthood, obviously, they've got international affiliates. We know that. I mean, this is their industry. Right. What's your sense globally, looking at Africa? You're the subcommittee chair on Africa on this issue, so what's it like?
My subcommittee also is global health and global human rights. Obama is the abortion president, and unfortunately, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is the abortion Secretary of State.
We've got a case against Planned Parenthood out in California. It is what's called a private attorney general's action, quintum action. And in that case, we've made the allegations that Planned Parenthood committed fraud, taxpayer dollars involved, to the tunes of, I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars. The trial court judge in California dismissed our case. We actually got involved in it after that stage. It was dismissed. We took it to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. At the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, reversed the trial judge on all counts.
Wow, that's amazing.
3-0, sent the case back. We're now at the trial prep stage. This is the largest case against Planned Parenthood currently going, and probably the largest case ever against Planned Parenthood for fraud. But here's the issue. While this is all going on, they are still getting the money. And we're talking fraud of the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars, allegations of fraud for hundreds of millions of dollars, yet they're still getting taxpayer money. And there are people that are out there right now that are listening to this broadcast or watching us on television, Congressman, saying, you've got a Republican-controlled pro-life majority, you've got some pro-life Democrats with you on these issues. How can we stop Planned Parenthood in this regard?
Well, we could try to defund them.
Right.
That still goes to the Senate, where there's a whole lot of people who just are enamored of Planned Parenthood. Many of them who are misguided and misinformed about the killing that goes on there, but also the fraud or the allegations of fraud, because this isn't the first time, and I applaud you for your success there. Planned Parenthood really needs to be investigated. They are a multi-billion-dollar business, about $1 billion per year. A third of it comes from public funding sources. Plus, they also charge, when people come in, and so Medicaid's paying and others are paying. But unfortunately, the whole abortion business has been sacrosanct to scrutiny and review, and we saw that in Pennsylvania. Just recently, when of all people, Tom Ridge, a Republican pro-abortion governor, came in after Casey, the scrutiny that was meted out to these clinics, including the one in Philadelphia, ceased to be. And the grand jury noted that there was just like a hands-in-pockets approach. Now, I know in my own state, Chris Christie, the governor, is looking to investigate some very significant allegations of wrongdoing by clinics. But you got to remember who actually makes the decisions on the money. After the money is either there or not there, it is the Obama administration. They have people who run the Title X program, which mets out this money to these organizations like Planned Parenthood. What we need to do, and I say this, we have to win in 2012. At the White House level, the Senate level, and the House level to make the real. This is a down payment. What happened in this last election? If we're to take back the culture of life and rebut this culture of death, we need all three branches working in tandem
with a pro-life perspective.
With the pro-life perspective, and then we need the right person as the gatekeeper who oversees the Title X program, Department of Health and Human Services, because we've had, with Republican presidents, poor gatekeepers in the past.
But, Congressman, how is Planned Parenthood getting away from this? How are they getting away with all of this? You've got those videos that have just been released with these undercover young people going in there, getting these videos where they're saying, we're trying to cover up sex trafficking, we're trying to cover up prostitution. Will you arrange for the abortions to a Planned Parenthood clinic? And, of course, they say, sure we will, because this is their business. Isn't this the time to go after them when they're making these kind of statements, when the public scrutiny on Planned Parenthood is on every television set in the country right now?
It has to be. Unfortunately, the media has been lax and enabling when it comes to Planned Parenthood. They buy into their big lie. They repeat it often enough. I wrote the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, so I work on human sex trafficking and labor trafficking every day of the week. And I wrote the 3 laws that are our mainstay laws. I think it's outrageous that Planned Parenthood clinic personnel were accommodating to treating women who have been, victimized. It was a scam, and that's how we often uncover this thing. I mean, sting operations. Well, there have been several sting operations against Planned Parenthood, and where is the enforcement on the part of the governors And I know the Attorney General, I hope, is looking in Virginia
Yes, he is.
to take some action.
Yes, he will. He's a pro-life
great
guy.
man, and he's a very good lawyer.
He is
too.
a great lawyer.
But where's the federal government? AWOL. Absent without leave, because
and if this was a conservative group that was making statements like this, they'd be indicted already. I mean, that's the
our Justice Department has been so compromised, especially our Attorney General, on a whole lot of things. Nothing's been done to combat. And who gets hurt? Women are being killed in abortion clinics. We know for a fact that there were a number of women killed by RU-46, and we knew about it because we had, and we're CDC, they do passive surveillance on mortality and morbidity, so we don't even have a clue how many women are being misrepresented as death from sepsis or something else, when the real reason was the abortion that she had at a clinic.
Let me ask you the last question here on this, Congressman. How important is it for the American people to have their voice heard while all of this is going on? While Planned Parenthood is in the news, why the international stuff is in the news? How significant is it for the American people to be contacting Congress, speaking out on these issues, showing up at these meetings, participating in this process?
Well, I think on especially budget issues, we saw how potent the Tea Party became when they pointed out that the deficit will be the end of us all economically. But we need a similar social values, moral values, outrage expressed by people persistently, with a sustainable approach. It means getting involved in elections, making sure that the right candidate wins, or running themselves. I came right out of the Right to Life movement. I used to be the executive director of New Jersey Right to Life. I ran in 1978, lost, ran in 1980 and won. We need more men and women willing to step in. This last class of Republicans that just got elected is the most pro-life class we have ever had. So hopefully it's the wave of the future.
So that's the time for the American people to speak out.
They really do. The election box, but also to call their congressman and ask them, what are you doing about this outrageous revelation about what Planned Parenthood has been doing within its clinics and the advice that, and it's not the first time. You know, we know for a fact that they gave very, very illegal and misinformation with camera going in the past. Now the linkage is, but the media has to do more.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, our so-called mainstream media asleep at the switch. They give them a pass, and they put out false information. The Journal of the American Medical Association did a absolute horrific job saying there's no such thing as pain-capable unborn children. I called the editor and said, your authors of this so-called peer-reviewed piece all have conflicts of interest. One of them is a late-term abortionist out in California. One of them used to work for an abortion rights group. Oh, I didn't know that. But it didn't change your opinion.
You know, it's interesting.
It was amazing.
I was involved in the trial of the partial birth abortion case as an outside lawyer for the Department of Justice when John Ashcroft was the AG, so I was involved in the New York case. We had the experts, fetal pain experts, testify. These were not, by the way, these weren't Christians. They weren't Baptist, Catholic, Methodist. These were secular doctors.
Exactly.
But they are fetal pain specialists. That's what they do. They are the ones that give the anesthesia to the unborn child when they're doing in utero surgery. And he said, why do you think we give anesthesia?
Yes, exactly. And Sonny Aman, one of those, isn't even pro-life. But he said, you know, the child will suffer when you do a prenatal surgery. If you do not anesthetize, what do you think the abortion does to these kids? They suffer in those first couple of minutes with excruciating pain that could be up to 4 times what a newborn would feel.
And unfortunately, we're paying for it.
And we're paying for it. We're subsidizing it in many states.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Jordan.
Thanks.
Let's take a look at this video that Congressman Smith was talking about involving Planned Parenthood.
In January of 2011, undercover investigators went into Planned Parenthood of Central New Jersey, posing as a pimp and his prostitute.
Some of them are young, they're kind of like, some are like 15, 14, and some of them don't speak any English, you know, because they're not even from here, so it's like, how can they come in here, because they don't always feel comfortable coming into facilities.
One, minors are always accepted without parental consent. You know, me and my other counselor, like, for the most part, we want as little information as possible. We want as little information as possible. Even if they lie, just say, oh, he's the same age as me, 15, you know, so like if they're 15, it's just like mainly 14 and under, we have to. Doesn't matter if their partner's the same age, younger, whatever. 14 and under, we have to report.
14 under. That includes being 14. Right?
Yeah, 14, you know, once they get to 15, then there's a little bit more playroom. So as long as they just lie and say, oh, he's 15, 16, you know, as long as they don't say 14, and as long as it's not too much of an age gap, then we just kind of like, then we just kind of play.
What if they do say they're 14?
Well, you know, then from there, it's just really watching what they say.
What if they need an abortion, though?
Oh, that's a completely different story now. You never got this from me, just to make all of our lives easier.
Okay.
If they're 14 and under, just send them right there if they need an abortion. I use this as my Bible.
Okay, there you go. That's your Bible, all right.
No matter what you get so many parents, and I mean, like, you understand where they're coming from, but it's like, oh, but she's a minor. Okay, yeah, so.
Hey.
Still needs to be safe.
Exactly.
You know.
Like, you know, she's still entitled to care without mom knowing what the hell's going on. Most of the time, I'm the one here. You might occasionally get...
Do you have a car?
Yeah, you know, and I'm the office manager here, so, you know, any questions, you guys just let me know.
Folks, as you see that video, you understand the fight we're in. We need to defund Planned Parenthood, and we've got the legislative vehicle in H.R. 3 to do it. Folks, that's going to do it for the broadcast today. And as I close the broadcast out, let me again say thank you to the TBN family and the partners of the Trinity Broadcasting Network, to Paul and Jan Crouch. Your support of TBN keeps its broadcast on the air because you're paying for the airtime. You're helping. TBN pays for the airtime. We don't have to pay for it out of the ACLJ. That is a huge benefit and blessing to the American Center for Law and Justice. And I want to say a thank you to the partners of TBN, to Paul and Jan and the team at TBN, and encourage you to support the great work of the Trinity Broadcasting Network. And again, thanks for being part of our team here at the American Center for Law and Justice. That's going to do it for the broadcast this week. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. This is Jay Sekulow again. I just want to thank Paul and Jan Crouch and our entire friends and family at TBN for allowing us to bring this broadcast to you. We also want you to know that we're here to help, and we really couldn't be doing it without you, and we appreciate everything that you're doing, praying for us and our lawyers. If you've got questions or you need information, contact us at aclj.org. If you want to call us, you can do that as well. I encourage you to do so at 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org.